Good evening, everyone. Well, not everyone. There'll be very few people watching to start, so not everyone is here yet. So we'll just wait for a couple of people. Evening, Bez. Evening. Harrison. Very good. So I hope you've all had another good week. It's sadly the weather has changed, which is incredibly disappointing. As I was really enjoying the sun over the last couple of weeks. It's been great to get out for an hour of exercise to soak up a few rays, get a bit of vitamin D. But no, the rain has set in and it's a pretty gloomy Friday night. But we have some fantastic wines this evening. Some three really interesting wines that a lot of people I think might never have tasted before. A lot of I think there'll be a lot of new drinkers to a red German, red Austrian wine. Really, really interesting, just very slightly off-dry Riesling. And even better, we've got the three winemakers, all three of them to taste through with us. So all in a long line of generational winemakers. Alexander, who's going to be coming on first, is fifth generation from the R in Germany. So we'll just wait for a few more people to clock on before we start. Very good. So this evening, I'll just share the three wines that we're going to be tasting. There we go. Three wines that we're going to be tasting, and I think we'll. I said to decant all the wines beforehand because all three of them can do with a little bit of opening up. Really sort of get the all quite young, especially quite can be quite an austere style. So especially with decanting, it really sort of opens up that aroma as we've chatted about before. And the tasting order might be a little bit odd for some, as we're tasting I would like to taste the reds before the whites. And that's often the case with German or Austrian tastings, as there are a lot of white wines produced in these two countries, and they range from bone dry to lusciously sweet. And tasting a lusciously sweet white wine and then moving on to a red wine can make that red wine feel very austere. Now, we're not tasting a sweet Riesling today, but I thought that the Pinot Noir, which is quite a light, delicate grape variety, quite a light style as well of Pinot Noir, might suffer a little bit with the slight lusciousness of the Riesling, which has very slightly noticeable residual sugar, bit fruit forward, and so I thought we'd taste red before white, and that's nearly always the case before at most German or Austrian tastings. I know Jancis Robinson always tastes red before white. Another thing is, if you've been at a wine tasting all day and you're tasting red wine for a long period of time, your teeth get a bit tired, your palate can get a bit tired, and actually tasting a white wine after a red can really liven up that tasting and sort of bring your palate back to life again. So before we bring in Alexander, who will be the first wine, so the first wine we'll be tasting will be the Jean Stodden Spätburgunder. So in Germany, the synonym for the grape variety is Pinot Noir, Spätburgunder, same thing. And what that really means is Spät in Germany means late, and Burgunder is of Burgundy. So all those Burgundy varieties that you might think of, or Pinot varieties that you might think of as well, have Burgunder in their name in Germany. So Pinot Noir being quite a late ripening grape variety, they call it Spätburgunder, late Burgundy, late variety from Burgundy. Pinot Blanc is Weißburgunder, Pinot Gris, Grauburgunder, and they have a couple of earlier ripening grape varieties like Frühburgunder, so Früh meaning early. So Jean Stodden and Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir, most famously grown in Burgundy, France being the number one producer of Burgundy, both probably in quantity, definitely in quantity and arguably in quality. Up until a few years ago, in fact, Germany was the second most planted country for Pinot Noir until the film Sideways came out, and everyone said, no, don't like Merlot. I think I'll just rip up the Merlot and plant some Pinot Noir. And so America leapfrogged Germany. So I think it now goes, France is the number one planted country for Pinot Noir. The second is the US, and the third is Germany. So very first wine, Jean Stodden Spätburgunder Pinot Noir. So this is his basic wine. The Decanter magazine, I'm sure a few of you might know, did a best Pinot Noirs outside Burgundy, and top of the list is the Stodden estate with Alexander's top wine. So it really has built up a name for himself over the last few years. Fifth generation, as I said. So fantastic producer in Rech in the Ahr Valley, which is a tributary to the Rhine. So just before we taste, I just wanted to show you a photo of the region. Incredibly steep slopes, up to say 60% steepness, which really helps to help ripen those red grape varieties in continental Germany. So should we all have a little taste and do a swirl it around, get that, really let it open up. And this is a really, really fantastic example of Pinot Noir. Has some really nice red fruit. The use of oak is perfectly balanced with that fruit, so you get that slight clove spice, little bit of that like sweet cinnamon spice as well. And we've had a conversation over the last few weeks. Is anything you taste, it'd be great if you just put them down in the comments, or scrolling along to the fruit emojis in your on the keyboard will help you maybe trigger your mind into saying, oh yeah, I see cherry, yeah, I taste cherry, or I don't think there's probably a cinnamon or clove emoji. But whilst you're all having a taste, should we bring in Alexander from Rech? Fantastic. So I've cherry, perfect. I was speaking to the winemakers this week and said if they could send me some photos, videos to see what's going on in their vineyards at the moment. And it's quite a busy time for them as bud burst is happening, perfect time for planting. And so we've got some fantastic buds at the moment. And it's quite a Alexander, evening. Time for them buds at the moment. And it's quite a busy time for them as bud burst is happening. Oh, it sounds he's a little bit behind on the video, but perhaps the internet connection is it okay?
It's okay. Hi, Elliot.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Getting there. It started to rain. It's been sunny all week, and then suddenly the rain has come out.
Okay. Yeah, the same here. You see, it's all the vineyard. It's all from the vineyard.
Yeah. So have you been in the vineyards today as well? You said
I was planting.
I've got some photos of.
I was planting the new vineyards of the Reche Hamberg for the GGs in 2040.
Brilliant. That's sorry. My phone seems to have unsaved those photos, so I have to pause. There. Never mind. Sorry, I've the photos that you shared haven't come through on my camera reel, so sorry about that. So have you started planting new vineyards in the Herrenberg?
Yes, right. Today.
Perfect. And so for everyone, the Herrenberg is your top vineyard. It's the real crown jewel of the estate.
Yes, I can show you. I have a little bit how it looks like. The Hamburg.
Oh, perfect. There you go. That's
so it's a very mineral vineyard. It's the best, and it's a poor soil. So you see a lot of stones underneath, and the solid rock is coming very fast. So the wines have to work very hard to get through. But if they did, they have everything what they get and makes very delicious and fine wines.
So what would I said no, sorry, I haven't got these photos because they were really quite impressive for the sorry, this is not Anyway, they for everyone at home, that if you look at the vineyard, you can't see any soil at all. It's almost like there's nothing for a plant to grow in. It looks like solid chunks of rock. And what allows the vines to be able to grow? It's their age, or
they have to get old by themselves. But no, it's they have to fight a little bit in the beginning to get all through this. It takes a little bit longer than at other places, but you can. If they go through it and they have enough soil, the slate is always wet, so they have always water inside. But you never have that water that is staying in the ground. It's running always through. But they always supplied with water very, very well, and for that they get all the nutritions they have. And the old wines, which were on the top of the decanter, they have roots. We say to the hell, all the way down.
All the way down, yeah. And so, how old are the oldest vines in the vineyard?
Almost 100 years.
100 years. And would they be grafted or on their original?
They're
ungrafted.
They're ungrafted. At this point, nobody
wow.
did. We didn't know about grafting at this point.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your winemaking techniques as well, because I know I've had some conversations with people this week who said it reminds them very much, of course, of Burgundy, but I'm not sure many people would have tried top estate Pinot Noir from yourself.
Yeah, okay. The thing is, I like Burgundies very much. So all my people, what I'm looking forward to, they are living in Burgundy. Yeah. So I've been there very often with my dad and tasting all the wines. So what I'm doing for winemaking is looking that I get the best grapes over the year. You make wine in the vineyards, not in the cellars. So you have to be very good to find the best grapes in the year, to reduce the yield, make all the works what you have to do over the year at the right point. And in the cellar, I'm working. I make a long maceration. I have a long fermentation, so I have skin contact up to 28 days. Not wow. With wine. This wine is only 12 days skin contact.
Only.
But and you need nice tannins, not too hard, soft ones, a little bit fruit with it, and it's actually easy to make wine.
Easy. Well, to make once you've done the work in the vineyards, the work in the cellar is easier.
Yeah, but you can screw up very much in the cellar.
Yeah, of course. So tell us a little bit about the 18 vintage. Pretty nice, easy going, or was it a bit tricky?
I don't know if it was easy. Of course, we had very, very good weather. We had a very long dry season over the summer. We had a lot of rain in the beginning of the year, so we didn't have a problem that we had to bring in some water to the vineyards. It was very, very good. You had to be very fast because we had the GGs harvested the first in August and the last in the 5th of September. So wow. That's pretty early for us. Normally
pretty quick as well. So yeah. just to explain for everyone at home might not know what the GG system is in it's almost like the translation direct is great growth, or it's the very top rated vineyards in Germany, and like Grand Cru would be in Burgundy.
Yeah, it's actually the Grand Cru of Germany. Just the VDP, for VDP members, and it's the best vineyards that we have, and there we can make the große Gewächs of.
I've just seen a comment, sorry, that we did some food pairings, and I've forgotten to say that they did some little crostinis with thyme and mushroom with some herb and truffle. So if anyone's at home and has cooked along, then this would go perfectly with your Pinot Noir. Gosh,
I don't have one. I just have my wine. So
of course, I mean that's just as important. So are they? the thing I love about this wine is that the balance of the fruit and the oak is just, it very gently frames the wine, but not, it's not a very obvious use of oak. It's just this, it's there to help give structure. Is that something you look for in all the wines, or would you, and this is designed maybe to drink a little bit younger than some of the top wines?
Yeah, you see, it's oak is not a primary aroma in the wine. You always have to put it way in the background. It's more like that you have a corsette for the wine, and
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, you have to. You always have to look for it that it's not a primary aroma, so that you don't drink wood, you drink wine, and this is what I try to. So for this, the wood goes in more basic, is less wood than I put in the Recher Hamburg GG, the große Gewächs there. So this is, you have to always play with it.
So do you do different, do you use different coopers or different toasting regime from the same cooper?
I use I use the same cooper. I don't always use the same toasting. I just play with the age. It's all French oak. It's I play there with the age. You know, in the große Gewächs there goes more first and second used, and then we go up to 4, 5, 6, and 10-year-old barrels. So I play with the age of the barrels.
And someone said, where do you source your oak from, or the barrels? Yeah.
I always order Allier oak medium toasted by François Frère.
Okay. There we go. That's it. The single menu, because there are people who dabble with a lot of different barrels, but you seem you have the same.
Only one.
Yeah, only one.
When I came home after away in studying, I said, okay, let's try barrels. And then I bought a few, and we tasted them blind, and we came always back to François Frère. So I said, if we already have for us the best barrels in the cellar, why should we look left and right?
Yeah, very good. And we've seen a couple of comments. Where are your glasses from? That was someone said they spotted your lovely glasses.
This is a Schott-Zwiesel glass.
Ah, yeah. A really elegant shape. Do you the where it recurves back at the top? I think that's sits nicely on the lips, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's hand blown, mouse blown by hand. It's not made by machine. And hand. In England we say hand blown, but which is silly because you don't blow with your hands. Do you? Yeah, and it's from the sommelier maker Alexander Stodden. He makes the EV International Wine Institute, which is located in Ahrweiler, and he educates a lot of sommeliers.
Okay.
And he made with Schott-Zwiesel these glasses, and I love them.
They look brilliant. No, they're very nice for Pinot Noir, because a lot of people drink Pinot Noir out of the big bold glasses, but I quite like the slightly taller capture, especially for younger Pinot Noir.
It's better for younger Pinot Noirs, yes. If they're older, you can have the big ones, but drinking out of the real big ones is sometimes a little bit harder.
Yeah. So someone, I just saw a comment saying, talking of young Pinot Noir, how long the classic age, how long could this cellar for, or how long would you cellar this for? It's the classic questions.
This one is made for drinking young, but you also can store it easily 5 to 10 years. Yeah. Depends on. You shouldn't do it in the living room on the shelf. You have to.
Yeah. In just the everyday wine rack for Wednesday night, just pizza or.
Yeah, right. But you can stay, but you also can drink it in the early years.
Perfect. Okay. Well, before we move on to the next one, and see if there's a couple of questions here. Well, let's see. This Stodden takes me to Burgundy. This bottle in particular of Dujac MSD. Is the winemaking similar? Oh, a whole bunch.
I've been there very often, And Dijac is one of my favorite winemakers in
Wow.
in
So a
Burgundy.
nice comment to read then.
So it's if it's similar, I don't know, but he is the one who told the most when we visit the Burgundy wineries, and he was talking. Yeah, he's more open than some other French people.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love Dijac's wines.
And would you so the whole bunch, is whole bunch something you use at all then?
I
Is that or
I don't use whole bunches at all. I rather like to have skin contact, cold maceration before than doing the whole bunches.
okay.
It's easier for me for working during harvest with cold maceration than with whole bunches.
Yeah, yeah. I see. Another question is saying, how's climate impacting your vineyards? Because we've stood in your vineyards together, and it's been 45 degrees sometimes. I mean, the heat that radiates off the stones is quite intense in the middle of the vineyards, isn't it? So how is thinking that Germany is a cool region for wine? It's in the right spots. It's quite hot in there, isn't it? It's
yeah, but it's the steepness of the hill is what makes it so hot. We in the 70s it was, if the sun was shining this high, it was always this hot in the Reche Herrenberg.
okay.
But it makes us. There is a climate change. It's getting warmer also here in this valley, but it's more for us more positive because we don't have the cold nights in the beginning of the years, and we don't have cold nights at the end of the year. So I know that my dad was harvesting way up to in the middle of November, and yeah, so to get the grapes ripe and not using like we have right now. We say Burgundy Pinot Noir ripens from the flower to harvest 100 days.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's say 30 years ago, we had 120, even 125 years for ripening. Days,
Wow.
not years, days.
Yeah. Yeah. Days. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's getting more comfortable for us. And it's yeah, it works.
Well, certainly. I think this is one of my favorite examples of your Pinot Noir I've drank in a long time, actually. It's really showing quite generously. It's perfectly balanced. It's yeah, fantastic. Sorry we can't share more photos, because I'll have to put them on a story, because you've taken some amazing photos of bud burst in the vineyard. It seems my iPhone has sent them up to the cloud and I can't access them from here. So sorry about that.
So yeah, take a story out of it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Thank you so much, Alexander, and great chatting. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah. So
cheers.
Tasting. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye. I really could have ended up chatting to Alexander all evening. Fascinating person, and it's so nice to have him talking about his wines. He's yeah, fantastic. So should we move on to the next wine? We'll just have a quick taste before we do, and then we'll bring in Lorenz from Austria. So the next wine, which a photo that hasn't seemed to disappeared, is the Villa Strass Zweigelt. Zweigelt might not be a grape variety that many of you have heard of. It is literally the last grape variety in the dictionary. It's a grape variety that's pretty much only seen in Austria, and it's the most red planted grape variety in Austria. So I'll just have a quick taste with everyone before we bring in Lorenz and say hi. Ooh. So compared to the Pinot Noir, this is a lot more generous in fruit on the nose. Almost has a sort of purple, bubblegummy fruit to it. It's a lot more plush, a nice round body, but still got that really nice acidity that rounds it off. So again, if you've got any comments or questions, please fire them into the comments or into the question and answer bit, and we'll move over to Austria and bring in Lorenz. I'm quite annoyed about all these photos because I lined up so many fantastic photos from Lorenz.
Hi,
how you doing? You well?
Oh, good. Sure.
Very good. So, what have you been up to today in the vineyards?
Yes, actually, we were in the vineyards. Yeah. Bud break is just started basically. So and we actually prepared one of our fields for a new planting today. So that was the work of today.
Lots of work and bending canes as well, or
what's that?
Bending canes as well onto wires. Is that
happened already? That's already done.
Brilliant. So tell us a little about Austrian red wine, because I can't imagine many people watching would know much about Austrian wine in general, but certainly not red wine. It's obviously you're better known for your Riesling and Grüner Veltliner.
Yes.
But you make fantastic Zweigelt as well. So tell us, maybe give us a little bit of history of the recent success of Austrian wine.
Yeah. So basically, as you said, Austria so far has always been mostly known for its whites. However, Austria as a country has a history for both white and red. However, it was the white wine that basically after the wine scandal, which happened in '85, afterwards, a lot of the Austrian producers really went abroad because they wanted to sort of get back a good reputation, but those were mostly white wine focused producers. So it was about Riesling and Grüner, just like you said. However, the red wine was always there. So it was a bit of and I think it also had to do with the trend on the markets back then. Because people were looking on the red wine side internationally for more full-bodied, more heavy red wines, if they were looking for something new. And Austria is not really, that's not what really Austria is all about. So we are more about light-bodied, fruit-driven, acidity-driven reds. Even though in the last 20 years, most of the areas that made Austrian wine tried to make very concentrated, very full-bodied wines, because somehow they wanted to fulfill this sort of international movement or trend where people were going when it came to reds. However, this changed a lot in the last years, and I think that's also why again Austrian wine when it comes to red got more attention again. That's how
it's I think it's and the freshness of this style is because Zweigelt can be made in quite a, as you said, a dense, rich, over extracted, bit too high in alcohol, whereas this has got that, it's got the purple fruit. And I saw someone wrote a quick comment that said, is there any carbonic in it? Great question. But I think that which really opens out that sort of slightly bubblegummy red fruit, and the acidity there as well is fantastic, and the freshness and the freshness is there that you want another sip and find out a bit more.
Exactly, and that's what Zweigelt for me is all about. I would never sort of claim that Zweigelt is one of the greatest red wine varieties in the world, where you can make the most complex red wine. I always say, I know that sounds a little bit extreme.
No, but I was just saying it is literally last in the Jancis Robinson book of wine grapes, but it is certainly not least. No.
I shouldn't say this, but I always say it's the sort of ugly child of two beautiful parents, because St. Laurent and Blaufränkisch are always known as those two great red wine varieties in Austria. And Zweigelt always has been the more easy kind of red wine. But I think if you treat it right in the vineyard, and if you let it be what it is, and it is, for me personally, everyday drinking wine that is fun to drink, where you can have one bottle or a second bottle, which shows lightness, freshness. And that's also why I think especially our area, the Kamptal, is very suitable for it.
Yeah, no, it's as you say, it's got this. It's something a complete. It's got this flavor profile that
Mm.
is completely different, and that freshness. As someone just wrote, cranberry notes, but I'm thinking
Yeah,
almost that cranberry juicy crunchiness, and crunchy has become quite a fashionable word in the
but it's
wine
a good
trade.
word to describe Zweigelt, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. But it's people talk a lot about crunchy wines and wanting that like
Yeah.
freshness and that red fruit and the slightly like that high vibrant acidity. And I think this wine does that with spades. It's got that in its entirety.
Exactly, and funnily enough, most of our Zweigelt that we produce ends up abroad. So we almost sell zero of the Zweigelt in Austria because the Austrians still, I think, I feel at least the more
The
traditional
strong,
wine drinkers, no, they are used to this sort of more full-bodied, richer, more jammy style that you described with
yeah,
low acidity, because Zweigelt actually as a variety doesn't have high acidity. It's not like Pinot or St. Laurent with high acidity levels, actually a bit lower. I don't know, somehow in Austria, I don't know, we were never, let's say, people would never grab our style of Zweigelt because I still make it the way my grandfather made it. So it's open topped fermentations, so whole bunch. That's also why the carbonic makes sense, because there is
yeah,
some carbonic going on.
yeah.
It's not on purpose, but it happens naturally because we're very gentle with the plunge downs. And then it goes straight to big wooden casks, so no oak influence. So it's really very traditional winemaking, and I think that's what Zweigelt, how I like Zweigelt the most.
Well, it would also be rude of us not to discuss your white wines whilst we're here. Obviously, better known for Gruner Veltliner, but
Yeah.
which did you win with your the was it the Heiligenstein Riesling?
No, it was actually the Geisberg.
Geisberg Riesling. Sorry, and that was best white one in the world.
Yes, the 2016 vintage.
That's a pretty big accolade as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I said to my father, I can retire now. I'm going.
Come on, you can't do no, not only that. You've got plenty more vintages to be making. We can't have you stopping now.
No. I still enjoy
Someone
it a
just
lot.
said, "What's carbonic maceration?" So that's. Do you want to explain, or do you want me to? You're the winemaker. You explain.
You're an expert as well, so no.
No, go on.
So basically, carbonic maceration is if you have whole berries and you don't allow oxygen to enter, and the fermentation basically starts inside the berry. That's easily explained what carbonic is about. So it's a micro fermentation inside the berry, which brings a lot of for me, juicy flavors to wines, and even some great producers of Pinot Noir and Burgundy like to gradually use it because it just brings a bit of complexity.
Yeah, and most famous in Beaujolais as well. So
There
Beaujolais
we go.
Nouveau with that sweet bubblegum, sweet
Yeah,
banana-y kind of flavor. That's like 100% carbonic. Really.
exactly.
Yeah. So what's next on the job list for the vineyards next few weeks?
Next few weeks, actually, we just discussed it because I just came from the small meeting that we have every Friday for next week. Next week, as I said, we will plant new vineyards. So today
Yeah.
we measured everything, how the rows will be planted. So this will keep us busy next week, and then we will get our first nets against hail protection, because hail has become sort of a topic for us previous years. So I wanted to try to for 1 hectare of vineyards to use hail nets, just to see how the effect really is, because there's so much talk about it. It changes your microclimate within the
The
leaves.
humidity.
Exactly, but I want to see it myself first before I do more, or if I stop it.
But it will be the year that it doesn't hail, won't it?
Yeah, that would be the best.
Anyway, well, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, we had
Yes, sure.
Richie had did you make the terrine that went with it, or
No, I made no terrine.
no? So Richard done the terrine. I think is a chicken and pork terrine with herbs and covered in Parma ham. And I think the acidity of yours, Zweigelt, along with the juiciness, matches perfectly with that sort of rich chicken pork terrine.
Yeah, what I think, what I like about, and I always say I see our Zweigelt also maybe more also in the spectrum for white wine drinkers. So it doesn't harm if it's slightly chilled to not too warm. Yeah. And for me, it's really also a perfect red for spring, summertime for the barbecues. It matches a lot of different meals very well. It's very versatile, just like the Gruner for me. That's what it is for me. It's an everyday, very flexible red wine.
So that was I'm just looking at a couple of questions. Sure. I think we've answered them all. One was carbonic, one was what food would we eat, and the last one was a little bit more general, but I'll come back to that at the end. So, Lorenz, thank you so much. Best of luck with the hail nets, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Chat soon. Elliot. Yeah, thanks, mate. Bye. Excellent. So we'll move on to the last wine, which is Johannes's Riesling from Gunderloch estate in the Rheinhessen. So he took over the family estate a few years ago, and being a multi-generational family-run estate, he really wanted to experiment a bit with the wines that they were making. There's been a lot of talk about terroir on the estate and whether terroir just ends in the vineyards or does it in fact move into the winery itself. And I know, and I'm very guilty in this, a lot of people have been making sourdough whilst in isolation and lockdown, and the sourdough starter in someone's kitchen is always going to be slightly different to the sourdough starter in someone else's kitchen, and be that temperature or the wild yeast or bacteria in the air, it's kind of like the terroir in a cellar in a winery. So let's go and taste the last wine. Got a little bit of red in my glass, but it's not a problem. Taste the last wine. So this is Johannes's take. And so for those who have the bottle at home, Alsvar, I'm probably not pronouncing this right, ein Stück von mir. It's at the end, it's a piece of me, and this is his wine, his take on the estate and what the estate can make and the terroir in the vineyard. So, and the reason I wanted to taste it last is it has a slight residual sugar, not bone dry, but for me that just adds and opens up the nose, opens up the flavor profile. So let's all have a quick taste before bringing Johannes in. So on the nose already, it's that slightly stone fruit, apricot, and a big thing with the red sandstone that is in the Rheinhessen on the vineyards that on the Gunderloch estate, is you get that slight struck match component that you might find in Burgundy. Burnt straw, yeah, that sort of struck match, perfect. And then on the palate, it's incredibly complex. Everything from sort of that rich, dry peach skin, all the way to that sort of kind of strawy, reduction is technical name, but struck match. So let's bring Johannes in and see how he's getting along. I know he's been planting a bit as well this week. He's also been putting some pheromone busters that confuse insects, that stop them from mating.
Hey.
Good evening, Johannes.
Hi.
Cheers.
Cheers. Nice to see you.
Sorry, after asking for all those photos, my iPhone has just sent them up to the cloud, so I can't seem to access them through Instagram. So I'll have to share them later.
No worries.
So what's been on the work agenda today? I know you're a big aficionado of doing work in the vineyard, so that the work in the winery is easy. What's in the winery today, in the vineyards today?
Well, today was actually quite busy day in the vineyard, as many people are at the moment, a little bit short of stuff. every hand is needed outside, and which is good for the atmosphere and my brain, because I actually get to spend a lot of time outside. We have seen bud bursts probably like 10 days ago. So actually there's crows on the vine already, like around this big. Well, at the moment, the big task is to get the vineyard ready for the vegetation. It has been all happening quite advanced and quite fast. So at the moment, all hands needed, getting the weeds under control, doing a lot of manual work, the bending, everything is already.
Sorry, it's breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, but it's probably at the moment one of the best times outside in the vineyard, because it's a slow kind of process at the moment. The temperatures is not crazy, and we can enjoy working, and it's pretty good for the atmosphere in your head at these times.
Yeah. Very good. I think I was just before you came in, I had a little discussion about the concept of terroir extending not just from the winery, not just in the vineyards, the slope, the soil, the aspect, the climate, but actually into the winery itself. And I think with everyone at home in isolation, sourdough has been a big craze, and I think it helps people to understand your concept of bringing that of a terroir being in the winery rather than just the surrounding of the vineyard. So maybe you'd like to explain a little bit about the concept behind your wine and what you think the Gunderloch estate is all about, rather than just the vineyards.
Yeah, no, thanks for pointing that out, because I really think that making wine is always a combination out of different dimensions. It's about an integration of all the different aspects. It's when I was starting out helping my father in the cellar, I pretty fast got the idea that I know exactly what's going on, and then I started out of curiosity, because I'm not a trained winemaker. I learned it by doing it, and so then I started out to do a lot of experiments, being quite interested in all these combination of how you harvest grapes out of the vineyards. And as you say, sourdough is a perfect example. It can create so many different characteristics, and that sparked something in my brain, which was then getting a little bit like an obsession. And I think my parents were thinking I'm turning a little bit crazy, because I fermented wine in many different places. I did a lot of cultured, spontaneous fermentation, cultured in different areas. I did it in my cellar, I did it in my office, and I also started to do starter cultures outside in the vineyard. So when you come during the harvest in our winery and walk around the vineyards, you'll find small glass balloons full of juice standing around in the different vineyard sites, waiting to start the fermentation. It looks like a couple of small Molotov cocktails standing around everywhere. And at one place they start fizzling away. They start the fermentation, and that was something for us really interesting to find out, to see how that actually starts, because we have finished winter. Now the vegetation is starting. And at the same time, the yeast of the year are developing at the same time that the grapes are developing. So for me, I think there's a very strong fit between the fruit that we harvest, but also we are trying to harvest the yeast at the same time. And you asked me, what is Gunderloch all about? And for me, it's always it's many different dimensions, but two very important. It's I try to compare it always to raising kids. I have two young daughters at the moment, so I'm trying to raise them the best I can. And what I always find out, they are a part of me, of myself, but they're also a part of the education that they appear, what they see, the people they meet, the places they have been, all that leaves a footprint on them. And it's the same when you make wine, in my understanding, that first you have the genetics, which generate outside in the vineyard, which is coming out of our soil, out of the core of the terroir idea. But then you give them a kind of education. It's like a kindergarten where you send them in. We harvest them We put them in our cellar, and that's where the part of the education, or we say in Germany, Kinderstube, which is a very nice word to say. It's a place where you grow up. And I think making wine is very important to always keep the two dimensions, that they belong together. And we have done a lot of experiments fermenting wine, as I said, outside in the vineyards, and comparing it to the wine that has been fermenting down in our cellar. And there are similarities, but there are also amazing differences. And even now I'm a little bit crazy on this. I cultivate yeast from every single vineyard. So every vineyard, if you taste the Pettental from our estate, it has been fermented with yeast that we also get out of the Pettental vineyard. If you drink Rothenberg, that's fermented with yeast that is harvested in Rothenberg. And actually it all started with this wine. So this is a German label. But this is actually where this idea started. We together with my wife, we started to start small fermenting batches outside in the vineyards. And what we found out is we were pretty much looking to find something really, really crazy.
Oh, we lost him.
Yes,
Sorry,
yes.
it's cutting out. There we go.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, it cut out a little bit. Start again when you said when you found out with your wife. It's what was when you started the wine. It starts from then. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, but we are expecting something really, really crazy, that the wine would be tasting like a freak wine, like a natural wine. But at the end, we found something very precise and very understatement-like. So it's not really crazily outgoing, but it's an amazing representative of its origin and of a combination of it carries the soul of our estate, but it also carries the soul of our soils. And this is a really interesting combination. And it started out with this little wine, but it was more like the birth of an idea that is now influencing our total winemaking. And you, believe it or not, all of a sudden, my job in the cellar got so much easier, because seeing this results really gave us the idea that we cannot make anything better, which we did not perfectly create outside in the vineyard. It's always a combination of the two. And this is actually why the wine.
It's like starting a sourdough starter, but actually the yeast is coming on the flour that you're buying rather than it comes from the kitchen as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's for me it carries, both parts are equally important. You cannot make a wine better in the cellar than it was at the time of picking, but it's really easy to screw up a wine in the cellar. So you know, you need to be extremely.
Yeah. It's funny. Alexander Stodden at the very beginning said the same.
Yeah, and I think once you understood that you are not the boss, but you are the employee of nature, of the vineyard, of everything, of the big picture. The manual labor gets harder, but the brain during the winemaking process is much more relaxed. And believe it or not, my father was kind of nervous, because he was university trained. He had a little bit more technical approach maybe on winemaking, which was important at this time. They have been growing up in a completely different environment. But I think for my generation now, it's a very important puzzle piece that we have to find to be able to accept the knowledge and use it where we can, but also on the other hand, step out of the very technocratic approach of winemaking. Because first, of course, wine needs to be good, it needs to be tasty, it needs to be great. But as a family winery, as we are in the 6th generation now, I think you have to add a dimension. You have to show the heart and the soul of where we live, where we make wine, and transport this into the bottle.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic. It's a shame we haven't got. I really would love to have had more of everyone's wines to compare. It's really hard coming in with just one wine from each estate, because you only get a snapshot of one thing, and it's quite hard to get what the big picture. Try and understand the big picture. Whereas it's with one wine, I think, and this shows for people tasting wines like this for the first time, I think this is a fantastic clip hole for people to understand. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And it's I think I've not done many of these tastings, but my feeling is, as you said, it's only one wine that you can see. I mean, there will be chances in the future that we can taste all the other wines as well. But this is for us a great chance to yeah, just to show what we love and what we do on a daily basis, and we can contact good people over in the UK, and it's a great chance. This is something good that is coming out of all this crisis kind of thing. But this is something where I think we can learn how to engage more about the issue and the theme that we love so much.
Certainly. No. yeah, exactly. No, but it's good. I think it gives us a chance to engage with people in the comfort of their own home, drink a couple of bottles of wine, and actually have quite a good time in doing it. But yeah, Johannes, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll chat soon, and I'll take a few questions. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Cheers, Johannes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Sorry, everyone. I think my my internet might be a little slow this evening, which is why I had to Johannes kept dropping out. But if you have any questions, please fire away. I think these are three of the most interesting wines that we've tasted along at home so far. If you want to revisit any of the wines, you've been thinking about one in the meantime, you've been tasting alongside. It'd be great to get a bit of feedback. For me, a lot of people I can see originally were saying that they've tasted the Riesling and it was a little bit sweeter now after they tasted the reds. But actually, it's to get over the interesting fact of it being not completely bone dry, which is what a lot of the wines that we drink on a day-to-day basis are. I think once you get past that and understand that slight residual sweetness comes a lot from the fruit profile, but also it really helps open up the aroma a lot. It helps balance, give it a little bit more body, really coats your palate. So I've got a couple of questions. Let's see what we can answer here. I love this. This question is always one that really sort of invokes a lot of discussion. Is how do you know when a wine should be drunk? Is it a crystal ball thing? It's basically getting to know an estate really well and to know how the vintage was and understanding that this is how a wine develops. And actually, there's no wrong time to drink a wine. It's just if you enjoy it at one end of its lifespan, then drink it then. And if you enjoy it at the other end of its lifespan, drink it then. Wine will always change. And even now with first growth Bordeaux, they're being made to drink a lot younger, and you don't have to wait 30 years. The tannins are slightly lower. They're much more integrated. They're using much more viticultural techniques to allow you to drink these things younger. But with a crystal ball, and I've said this a few times, is going into an independent wine merchant and having a chat with the person behind the counter or in front of the counter and saying, look, I drank this wine for a long period of time. I drank this wine and I really enjoyed it. What else can you recommend? Should I be looking to age this wine? And hopefully an independent wine merchant will be able to tell you how the wine ages and what kind of aromas that will come out over time. So something like this Riesling, it's already 3 years old, and you can hopefully start to see that it's moved away from its fresh lemon, fresh lime that you'd often associate with a young Riesling into that kind of stone fruit. I even saw someone wrote honey, and that's kind of the development that will happen over time. Rosie, European alcohol is often lower in alcohol content. How does this affect the palate? So alcohol adds a lot of body to a wine, and it's the lower the alcohol, the lower the body in a wine, and the higher the alcohol, which also means that the higher the alcohol, the higher or the longer the hang time on the vine, and the more likely it is to have developed higher phenolic ripeness. So again, going back to that flavor spectrum, to go from lemon and lime at one end all the way to that tropical at the other end, the lower in alcohol might mean that it hasn't quite hit that tropical note, and therefore you're still on that sort of racy lemon, lime, citrus, verging on that sort of green apple spectrum. But also it doesn't really, your alcohol content is also a function of how much sugar has been fermented. And so if you've got a low alcohol content, it could also mean that there's some residual sugar left in the wine. I'm not sure of the exact content of this. So there's 12%. So with 12%, and I would imagine, I haven't looked this up, it's probably 12 or 15 grams per litre residual, which means it's probably got another potential alcohol of 0.5% to 1%. So this, if it was fermented dry, might be 13%. So because it's lower in alcohol, it could have a little bit of residual sugar. And for me, it's great because it opens up the palate, opens up so many more aromas, and opens up what you're tasting in what you're tasting. Laura, retail prices of the three wines, I've been really terrible this evening, and I don't know. I think the Stodden Spätburgunder is about 24.99 ish, 24.25. So Johannes has said it's 6 grams residuals. Sorry, Johannes, which is great. It's just like that perceptive. I always get residual sugar is always a really hard one with Riesling to pick because of the acidity in it, and knowing that this has got a fantastic vibrant acidity, I was going a little bit higher because I thought the sugar might be masked, but actually 6 grams is really it's actually technically dry in Germany. So see, one more question before we go. What temperature should we drink this wine at? Probably, I would say sort of 12, 13 degrees, not too cold, not straight out the fridge. I would say that they're all about 12, 15 degrees out of the fridge. Very good. So unless anyone has any more questions, I think we're just under the hour mark. Instagram are going to kick us out. So have a fantastic evening and weekend all, and hopefully we shall see you soon. Bye.